Welcome to Pittsburgh Sportsline. This is the first show of the new year. Thanks for tuning in. We have a lot of great sports. We've been off for about 3 weeks, and it's hard to hold these guys back. And we're going to start out with a couple different format changes. But first, I want to show people that I want to thank Bethel Park that because of these guys and the crew, I won Producer of the Year.
All right, go ahead, and Pocket Machine.
Now,
in the vein.
Now, I want to thank everybody because
It's a greatness.
it's I appreciate sarcasm, but I couldn't have done it seriously and sarcastically without Chip Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, Big Mike Butera, Joe, I don't know your last name, I forgot it, Chris, same thing, they're our cameramen, Devin Shea, Aaron Ward in the control room, and the director of Bethel Park TV, Dave Cable. Thank you for all your help. I heard viewership's up all over the area because of us from what we started and what we're doing now. So we have a lot of.
Forget the man that got this.
Hold it. Let me get there. You're not.
Meg.
You're not even getting. Chip, I had this all prepared. Jeez, that's why it's live TV, folks. But that's the award. But what I wanted to do is I give thanks, even though the guy's no longer with us on the show. Mike Migliore is one of the greatest connectors in the world, and I'll leave it at that. And you can see him on our Pittsburgh Sportsline at Level 20, which was only designated Level 20 Sportsline because they couldn't put it into the scheduling that way. So it is our Pittsburgh Sportsline show. Just so people that are getting confused, because we did our 15th show last night, and people are like, how do we find that? This is our 64th show, I think, tonight.
Wow.
So it's quite an accomplishment, guys, and I did want to take the time to thank our new viewers that we have out there. I met some people in Market Square, Serendipity, the Coppola family, Pete and Kim. They have a nice store there in Market Square. Go visit them. They said they're going to watch the show now. Dozens of people, Big Mike, are telling me about it. Shout out to Tyler and Joe in Bethel Park, 2 new viewers at the get-go. Shop and Save, they're always telling me that. Giant Eagle, same thing. All over the area, from Monroeville, Plum, South Fayette.
Frankfort, Illinois, Rick and Loretti.
There we go. And even in Washington, D.C., we've had somebody.
Mike Vick.
So for all the people this year, I'm changing the format just a little bit, and you'll hear the different little schedule here, but we're going to stay with what's on your mind. And enough of all my stuff, but thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it. And Bethel Park, they don't realize the asset they have here with Bethel Park TV and spreading goodwill throughout the community. So I thank them for giving us facilities like this too. And here we go. Big Mike, what's on your mind?
Well, that's different. By the way, Miggs had mouth surgery this morning. You told you that, guys, last night. And congratulations, Big Chair Machine, who never spoke as a kid. I want to wish everybody out there. I want to wish everybody. I want to wish everybody out there a happy New Year.
Can we go to commercial right now?
I already did the,
oh, I'm sorry.
I already did the Rick and Loretti bit, and I got to tell you, New Year, blah, blah, blah. My batteries are recharged. I mean, all the nagging injuries I had at the end of last year have healed. I'm about 97%, and I'm going to take one show at a time. That's what you guys are going to get from me this year, okay? What do you think of that? One show at a time, and they're having our new mantra this year, okay? Mm-hmm. So that got a big charge out of you guys.
What did you say?
I have no clue. I watch this when I go home, you know, when it comes on YouTube. By the way, I'll say that for another time.
Hey, Big Mike, can I ask you one thing?
Lay it on me.
What's on your mind?
I don't do infomercials. I do hellos and asides.
Big Mike, I have another question for you.
What's on my mind? The Baseball Hall of Fame balloting, voting, blah blah blah, is being announced tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Now the ballots were already in house as of I think December 31st. But I got a couple interesting takes. No, I don't. I just take notes from other guys that have takes. And what I wanted to read to you is a quote from a Sports Illustrated writer. They have a gazillion, so I don't know which guy this was, but he said, the dilemma's been coming up for 5 years because he's a baseball writers association. He gets the vote. Now the dilemma is coming up in this 5 years ago when this ballot will have Clemens, Barnes, Sosa, Piazza, Bagwell, and some other guys that either have been admitted or tested or just inferred. And this is his take, which I thought was pretty cool because it really kind of sums it up. The Hall of Fame is an amusement park, a museum that celebrates the game and its history for the entertainment of the fans willing to make the pilgrimage to Cooperstown. I mean, we're making it, this big dilemma with all these guys, et cetera, is like we're not voting for elected officials to run the world of the United States or anything like that. So bottom line is that he has decided to judge the players against their peers in the era they played, and I think that makes sense because who knows who did, who didn't. If you weren't tested, if you tested positive, then we know for sure that you did something, and that would be Rafael Palmeiro, for one, who was the first year eligible this year with 500 plus home runs and 3,000 plus hits. Those are automatically 600 home runs, I think. Those are automatic credentials, but like he's probably not going to have much of a chance. And here are the guys that are either suspected, used, or on this ballot: Bagwell, Biggio, Bonds, Clemens, McGuire, Morris. Oh, he's old guy. Palmeiro, Piazza, and Sosa. McGuire's not going to make it because he admitted. Palmeiro because he tested. Barry Bonds admitted, but he didn't know what he was using. Typical. Roger Clemens, his name comes up all the time. I can't stand it. I'll tell you why. He's never tested positive. Producer. He's never tested positive, and he's never admitted to anything. He even went to such lengths as paying for a trial on his own to have his name cleared of perjury and all that jazz. Now, one more thing before I lost somebody else to talk is an interesting story that Jim Palmer relayed on an interview last week, and he was talking about a game that he played in '78. He was pitching against Gaylord Perry. Now, they're both Hall of Famers. Gaylord Perry's a 300-game winner. He's in the Hall of Fame. It was in the 7th or 8th inning of a shutout game between Perry and Palmer, and although the Orioles had a couple hits, they weren't putting the bat on the ball. And back in those days, the old school days, at the end of the inning, the ball, instead of being thrown into the stands, was just placed on a pitcher's mound for the next pitcher to come out, pick it up, and throw it. We remember that.
Yeah.
So it's about the 8th inning, no score. The Orioles could not put the bat in the ball. Palmer comes out, he picks up the ball, and he sees these two things indented into the ball. He showed it to the umpire, because this is when Perry laid the ball down, after his inning of pitching. And the umpire, and Palmer goes, look at this guy, look what he's doing. And the guy goes, well, that's just Gaylord Perry. Now, in summation, I say to you, and Chip, I want you, and we
revisit.
Yeah.
That's why we do this.
Yeah, I want you.
Because of you.
Thank you much. I can appreciate that. I want you, Smoking, to talk about the players in the NFL in the 70s and 80s that guaranteed were steroid users. Let's say, can you remember Lyle
Hold it.
Zato?
Finish your thought, and we'll get through with that.
And Chip Hayner's going to talk about the guys that used amphetamines back in the 60s, Mays, Mantle, and Aaron.
I want to talk about vitamins.
Well, I thought you might want to talk about the inflated egos of union negotiators, but not you.
They won.
Okay.
Is that amazing?
So
They didn't blink.
yeah,
Go.
right.
They
Somebody did. Okay, guys, let's move on to somebody else that might want to talk.
Hold it.
Okay,
Mike, are
Yes,
you
sir.
done with what's on your mind?
I sure cleared that up. The
Then
Hall of Fame.
we're going to go to Smokin' Jim Frazier on the new year. What's on your mind, Smokin' Jim?
Hey, congratulations again, Talking Machine. You're the best quarterback in the country, brother. Proud to work
Last
with
year
you.
was Ben Roethlisberger. With
Yeah,
Yeah,
but thanks for being on the team.
yeah,
Without
proud.
you guys, I couldn't do this.
Proud to be a part of this group as well. Breaking news. I got a phone call this morning to appear on a show that comes on Saturday evening. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of the show. It's been around for a while, called Championship Chase. And Championship Chase is only, remember Dee Thompson used
Yes,
to be on Channel
I
11
heard
News.
it.
And
I know Dee Thompson.
you know Dee Thompson? He's black. I figured you would know him. And
Sorry, buddy.
so I was very happy to get the call. It's going to be shown 3 times. It's on WPXI, but I don't know if it's on PNNC. You know, I haven't seen it, but
PCNC.
But I'm more thrilled about one of the co-hosts there named Liz Costa. If y'all get a chance to Google Liz Costa, she's one of the top 3 or 4 finest women in the world. I know Brent Musburger would agree. But they told me it's their last taping. They only do during the Steelers season. So it's the last taping of their show. And they asked me to be a permanent co-host starting next year. But I cautioned them. I says, well, I'm not real good for advertisers. So think about it. And if you want me next year, I'll be available. But anywho, hey.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. But so tune in on Saturday. Get a little color in your weekend. But
what time? Can you say what time again?
You look it up on TV Guide. I've never seen the show. I think around 7 o'clock.
Read TV Guide years. I'll Google it.
Championship Chase. But anywho, everybody knows I do a draft report that goes to all the general managers of the National Football League, and I got a mail order business where people get subscribed to my reports. And I got a laugh all over last year when my number 1 rated quarterback last year was Russell Wilson. I don't think anybody's laughing now. And there's several teams in the National Football League that needs to fire their entire general managers, staff, and their scouts for overlooking this kid that had all the intangibles. I wasn't real high on RG3, and I tell you why. I thought he was a talented guy, but I thought RG3's game was twofold. One, with his legs. I don't think he's going to have his legs more than 4 or 5 years. I compared him in my draft report to Cordell Stewart. I thought he had a fragile personality like Cordell. I love Cordell as an athlete, but as a leader and a tough guy, Cordell didn't have it. I don't think RG3 has it either. And RG3 is not a guy that's going to study in the offseason. I don't think he'll spend more than 4 or 5 days in D.C. But the guy that I really liked, and I had him 4th in my draft report, was Kirk Cousins. So RG3 better watch out. He's starting to mouth off. He took a direct hit against Kirk Cousins, which I think is going to wake up the Mike Tomczak and Kirk Cousins. If you remember, Mike Tomczak consistently backstabbed Cordell Stewart in the offseason. They really didn't like one another. But when RG3 says, I was the best option on this team, that's why I'm the starter, I thought that was a real knock against Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was a 3-time team captain at Michigan State, which is very hard to do. He's going to spend his entire offseason in Washington, I guarantee you that. He's going to study, and Washington's not that talented. I think they're going to take a step backwards next year. RG3 is going to start feeling some heat next season when the fans begin to turn on him, and that's going to be the whole ordeal. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers, real quickly, my wish list for them, I don't care how I didn't see the game last night, and I don't care how the middle linebacker played at Notre Dame. That's still my first choice. I hope he slides. The guy is 6'2", 250 pounds. Should have gone in the first round last year, but he came back because he wanted to work on his pass defense. He did that. He never had any interceptions his whole career at Notre Dame. He had 7. And I always ask this to all the scouts in the National Football League when they ask me about a certain player. I ask them, are you afraid to coach? He has everything that you look for. A great worker. Work begets results. Only time results comes ahead of work is in the dictionary. This kid is a hard worker. He's coachable. Any deficiencies that the middle linebacker for, how you say his name, Teo? Anything that he has to work on is coachable. So I would take him in the first round. Second round, I got my man Austin from West Virginia. In the third round in my wish list is Monty Ball, another guy who misses Russell Wilson this past year.
Thanks, Smoking Jim.
Nice job.
Some great insights there, folks. That's why you got to keep watching this show. Look at what you get from Smoking Jim. And now we come to Chip Hayner. What's on your mind, buddy?
What's on my mind? Well, thank you, Alan. Thanks, Jim. Big Mike. And Happy New Year to everybody. It's going to be a great 2013. And yesterday, finally, wrapped up the college football season. The biggest game of the year was a complete dud, okay? But I do want to congratulate the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were the best team in college football this year. They proved it last night. They took a Notre Dame team to task, and I tip my hat to Nick Saban. I don't like him, but, you know, I mean, his results speak for itself. A couple of my thoughts and observations about the college football season. You know, the bowl season is just disgusting. I went through the entire bowl season this year without watching a single game. That was my way I would pay tribute to the FBS, the BCS, and whatever else they want to call it. You know, I was reading an article recently about the college football bowl system, and every single team that went to a college bowl this year lost money. Isn't that a great system? And here's an interesting thing. Florida played. Who did they play in the Sugar Bowl? Was it Georgia or somebody? Florida. You know, each of these teams, they go to a bowl game and they are forced to buy X number of tickets, okay? They had 17,000 tickets to sell, and they didn't even sell like 12,000 of them. So the other 5,000 of those tickets are purchased by the university.
I think it might be a Louisville.
Yeah, but the point being, all these teams are forced to buy blocks of tickets, and you know you got Pitt going to that travel destination of Birmingham, Alabama. How many people from Pittsburgh do you think want to go to Birmingham, Alabama ever? Okay, 13. You know, so you know the university's forced to pay money for tickets. And did you see all the tickets that the Pitt Panthers bought that were disguised as empty seats? That's money that came out of the university's coffers. And what did they get back in return for it? The amount of money they got back did not reflect the money that went into it. So I think, you know, something with that system needs to be fixed. And none of the bowl games really mattered. There was one bowl game that mattered last night for about 15 minutes. And after that, I mean, it wasn't even a game. Television stats started going off, and I missed Brent Musburger's diatribe in regards to the Alabama's quarterback, girlfriend, and his mother. And I think, Brent, your time has passed. You're a dirty old man, and you ought to keep your potty mouth off of TV. Now, on the positive side of some things that happened in college football, you know, I criticized Paul Chryst all year. You know, I thought the one thing that was consistent about the Pitt Panthers was their inconsistency. They lose two, they win two. They lose two, they win two. And it went that way all year. Unfortunately, they won the last two games of their season, which just about guaranteed that they were going to lose the BBVA Compass Bowl, you know, right there. And, you know, and Tino Sunseri finished his career consistent. You know, and he was consistent in one thing. In his entire 3-year career as a starting quarterback at Pitt, he had absolutely zero come-from-behind victories. So after Ole Miss scored that first touchdown within the first 3 minutes of the game was over because Tino didn't have the ability to go. But to
where's the positive to this?
To Paul Chryst, credit. His alma mater, the town where his wife and his family live, his children go to high school, where he went to high school, where he was an athlete, the University of Wisconsin, and where he came from to Pitt as being an offense coordinator. The head coaching position opened up there. And I admire Barry Alvarez for not pursuing Paul Chryst. I admire Paul Chryst for sticking to his commitment and staying with the University of Pittsburgh because that is his dream job, to be the head coach of the Minnesota Badgers, and he felt it was not the right thing to do. So my applaud, Paul Chryst. The Pitt program needs the stability of a head coach. Do you realize that since 2010, Paul Chryst was the 7th head coach of the Pitt football team, and he's the first coach of the Pitt football team in the last 3 years that actually coached the bowl game that he started the season in. Okay. Wow. The other thing that I admired, and I want to applaud Bill O'Brien at Penn State. He won the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Just stole all of my stuff.
No, and the reason why I wanted to mention that is because in the Big Ten this year, Urban Meyer came to take over the program that Jim Tressel destroyed. Okay, the Ohio State University. Ohio State was undefeated this year. They ended up ranked number 3. They were not eligible to play in a bowl. They were not eligible. They had draft. Recruits. What is it? They couldn't scholarships that they weren't allowed to have. And Bill O'Brien was the coach of the year, and the NFL came knocking on his door this past weekend, and he is a very hot commodity. Every one of these teams in the NFL that are looking for a head coach wanted Bill O'Brien. He decided to stay at Penn State. I applaud you, Bill O'Brien. That's a very positive thing. What he did with, at Penn State this year was he resurrected that program. It was dead in the water after the scandals from last year, and I wish them well. But I'm sorry, Alan, if I jumped on your thing, but
I might have to talk Steelers.
That's what's on my mind.
I'll tell you what, that was interesting stuff. Everything, really. Not that you're not, but that was really interesting.
I take after my good friend. I got a tough act to follow here.
Hey, Chip, thanks for that. What's on your mind? What was on my mind? I wanted to cover Chris because, I respect, some of the things that he's done. He's just not the man for the job there. That's the problem I have. He shouldn't be a coach there. It's a shame he's in that situation. Bill O'Brien, he showed some class. Mm-hmm. And especially, I had called, one of my predictions was Penn State would have one of the biggest scandals in U.S. history. Well, now we have the Attorney General, who is a Pittsburgh guy, or he was Attorney General, now he's governor. Now he's suing the NCAA when I think he's trying to deflect some of the issues that might have been on him, because he should have investigated this. And it goes back to the Free Report. You guys have heard me rant about that. They paid $6 million to a guy who was an FBI director who should not have been there. He's as corrupt as could be, and they spent $6 million to get like a semi-death penalty. So that's not right. So he's throwing the blame off somewhere else. And sure, the NCAA is wrong, but so is Penn State, and so are all those people that abuse these victims. And now I hear they're trying to settle every one of those cases right now, so they're done with it instantly. That's what they don't want this to go any further. So that shows me with Corbett coming out with this. I don't know him. I figured he's a fighter like all of us from Pittsburgh. Maybe it's a character issue, but I think it's a blame issue. They're trying to deflect it. Because look, they're paying, now they're settling. All these poor kids were abused for all these years. Nobody cared. Look at all the sheriffs. Look at all the leaders in the community. It's just terrible, and I pray for those victims. And to me, all the shenanigans out there, it's terrible. But you have a coach that, here's the guy that showed more class than any of these politicians and leaders on campus. Their presidents, their doctors, whoever's in charge of this. And that's what's on my mind. And we're going to revisit, because we got some great topics here to revisit. So we'll start it off. Let Chip go with the first at bat here.
Okay, the first at bat. I want to say one thing about Tom Corbett. Shame on you. You ought to be embarrassed, okay? Because what you did is you took one of the most tragic events in sports history, but in United States history, and you're turning it into something political. All you are trying to do is get reelected, okay? And I think that is a bunch of crap. Tom Corbett, you will be one and done.
Okay. Anybody else want to revisit some of the sports topics there? Big Mike,
I want to ask you, see, I don't pay attention to sports even though I'm on a show. And maybe this is off sports, but I didn't hear about what you just said about them settling with the families. Now, I want to know two things. Who's paying the money?
Penn State.
The university.
The university is paying how much in total?
We don't know.
We don't
That's
know
to be
the
determined.
numbers.
Guessed. I'm asking.
Right now, the bill stands at $100 million.
It'll be hundreds of millions of dollars.
Where does that? It's from the university. Where do they have this money?
Well, you look at all the Penn State alum that are flying around.
This is why.
And look at the boosters and everything, people's tuition. That's where the money's going to go. It's going to get cut out of benefiting people's educations, but that's the nature of the beast.
What's the worst case scenario prognosis for a university or Penn State University? I mean, what could happen to this place because of this money?
They're going to survive because they have the biggest alumni association in the country. I'm a fan of Penn State and the people.
Absolutely.
I'm not a fan of the criminals and the criminal element that is a truly criminal element there. And they got away with it, and they helped perpetuate this. That's why they're trying to settle it.
Well, last year, Big Mike, Penn State, just from their alumni, people that used to go to Penn State, they sent in donations last year, yearly, that went over $200 million. So Penn State's, they're going to be alive and well. That's not counting the football revenue, tuition, and it's just people who graduated from Penn State that gives back every year to the university was over 200.
Okay, let's do this.
The football program itself, annually, brings in $60 million in revenue, and that's what the NCAA fined them. They fined them the equivalent of 1 year's football revenue, which can be paid over 5 years, which is $12 million a year. So they still have the ability to print money up there in Happy Valley, and they're going to continue to do that.
But Paterno was there for what, 50 years as head coach? Was it 50?
Yeah.
So a good amount of alum that are still kicking and donating money, as you guys just mentioned, were somewhere involved in that 50-year span, right? Now, I don't know, because I'm not a Penn State alum, but I don't know if I were an alum, if I wanted to contribute any more money after this, because I was involved in
Here,
it.
Big Mike, I'll interrupt you here. I know
Let's
a lot
follow
of
the
Penn
money,
State.
follow the trail of money.
I know a lot of Penn State people. My daughter graduated there in 4 years, so
Congratulations.
she has done that. That's 2 years ago. But part of the thing is they do have a great educational culture. Now, I can't help that it got screwed up because of some of the people there. But you have bad people in society all over the place. Now, to penalize, put the criminals in jail. That's what I'm about. And we don't have that happening.
However, you can't, if you donate $1 to that university, you can't say where that dollar is going. You can't say, well, I don't want it to go to pay off that
But the
debt.
university itself wasn't the problem. It was the people that were leading
I
it
understand.
that caused the problem. So the institution itself is still got a high standards and
I hear
is
you, but
still
if they
something to be proud of.
But if they owe a couple $100 million to these families, then I know that my money that I'm donating as an alum is going there.
What if it's only 1/4 of what's being donated? You might only
But you
be
don't know
donating
that.
20.
If I was an
I'm
alum, I
telling
would
you, I
still
know
support
that.
them.
No, I'm asking you, do you know that? I mean, can you do that? Can I say,
No.
here's my dollar, I
You
don't want
can't.
to...
You can say it.
Well,
You
that's
can
what
say
I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
can say
gonna
anything
happen.
you want to.
You know what? We're going to have a special edition of Pittsburgh Sports Line. We'll do it during the day, and we'll tape the show. And we'll do it on this issue. Because, guys, let's get to something a little lighter. I didn't mean to bring all that.
Because
You want to
Big
rebut?
Mike-
You
yeah,
want to
no.
rebut?
I want to revisit.
You want to revisit the revisitation of Big Mike? We have a newer segment
I
here.
want to revisit the Hall of Fame arguments, and I was listening to Big Mike's, and here's what my thought is on the this is one of the things that Big Mike was talking about. There's quite a number of people that are eligible for the Hall of Fame this year. A lot of people for the first time, and a lot of people that people think should be first ballot Hall of Famers. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, has been eligible for a number of years. Sammy Sosa, Rafael Palmeiro, and none of them are going to make the Hall of Fame. And as a matter of fact, this might be the first year that nobody's elected to the Hall of Fame. I touched on this last night, but there are some excellent candidates that should be considered that I don't think will make it. One of them is Craig Biggio. Craig Biggio, 3,000 hits. He joined the 3,000 hit club. He had 600 and some odd doubles.
689.
Which is the most doubles by a right-handed hitter in Major League history. Okay? Pretty amazing stuff. And he's also a baseball player that did something that has not been done in over 100 years. He's the only baseball player that's had a season where he had 50 doubles and 50 stolen bases in the same season. Pretty amazing statistics. Jack Morris is another guy who was never tainted by the steroid scandal, who was probably one of the best pitchers of his era, one of the most durable pitchers. One of the amazing stats about him, going 8 innings or more in a game that he started, compared to anybody else in his era, he started 241 games where he went 8 innings, a minimum of 8 innings. The next closest pitcher was a guy named Charlie Huff with 166. It's a pretty amazing statistic because in this day and age of specialized pitchers, guys go out and they pitch 1 inning. Guys go out and they can't throw more than 36 pitches. These are pretty amazing stats. There are a number of other guys that, it's a sin that a baseball player like Dale Murphy, who did it right, but he didn't have a very long career. But during the early and mid '80s, he was probably the best player in baseball for the Atlanta Braves. And this is his last year of eligibility, and unfortunately, he's probably not going to get in. Wow. So, there are some eligible candidates, and it would really be a shame if nobody did get elected to the Hall of Fame this year. And I know Big Mike would mention something, and, Alan's going to get to this point on Chip's trivia. Well, here's what. I got a piece of trivia, and it just came to me.
Hold that up.
No, it came to me in a revelation. He was talking about when baseball games, when the pitcher got done pitching the inning, he'd lay the ball on the mound, and the next pitcher would walk out and pick up the ball. I go to a lot of baseball games, and I noticed that after every pitch, the ball gets thrown back to the dugout. Does anybody have any idea how many baseballs are used in an average baseball game?
Wow.
No. Did you write it down?
478 baseballs are used in an average baseball game. Is it either 478 or 276? But either way, 276 baseballs, if that's the number, okay? And I have to check my records. That many baseballs used in a baseball game. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I
But
want to know who has the contract with the baseballs.
Rollins.
Because that's a
No,
nice
that's you.
business,
Rollins.
buddy. But here, I want to interrupt you on this Gaylord Perry. What was he known for as a pitcher?
a little dippity-doo on the
Hair.
baseball.
It was a lot of spit. It was some things behind the
Vaseline.
ear, Vaseline, and a lot of pitchers did that.
Did you?
And that all happened, and it was true. Just like another thing, you guys missed this with a catcher. They have shin guards. You ever think that they scuff up a ball for a pitcher?
No,
Yes,
never
they
happened.
do.
Never happened.
And you miss a lot of those things because the average person, they just want to listen to the media, enjoy the game, and how pure it is. This stuff went on forever,
Yes,
just
sir.
like the dead ball era. They'd
Yes,
soak
sir.
a bottle, a baseball would be dropped in a bucket of water. And both teams are affected by it, but think what that would do back in the 20s and 30s.
But you know what?
So these things happen. Everybody looks for an edge, and that's our point here.
Well, you know, in the steroid area, people, they have about as much chance of making the Hall of Fame as Pete Rose does. Now, everybody, you know, you talk about Pete Rose, why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? And the simple fact of it was Pete Rose cheated, okay? And here's the thing, you know, Pete Rose agreed to a lifelong ban from baseball. And Pete Rose is really, the one thing he wants to do in his life is be elected into the Hall of Fame. Well, you know what? You agreed to a lifelong ban. So, Pete, here's my advice. You want to get in the Hall of Fame, drop dead.
Yeah, that's
That may happen. Okay, are we done with this segment of revisit the revisit of what's on your mind? Because I got a special thing coming up now. We got another little segment we're going to do. Smoking Jim Frazier always comes up with these insights, so I've been teasing him for about 6 months. And we're going to do Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. And right now, since I just threw it at him, he can talk about whatever he wants just for this little segment here. And if we need to pick it apart, you know we got the crew to do it.
Hey, thanks, Taco Machine. I feel honored to have this special segment, and I'll be very brief.
You have 2 minutes and 26 seconds.
I'll be quicker than that. Back in the early 90s, the gang activity in the city of Pittsburgh was very high. The Crips was high, the Bloods was high, but probably the toughest, meanest, most vicious gang was the LA gang, which is the Larmer Avenue gang that went from Larmer Avenue all the way through Wilkinsburg to East Liberty. And Curtis Martin, the Hall of Fame running back, lived on Larmer Avenue. And I'm not sure how involved in the gang activity he was, but he didn't play any sports. His mom worked like 2 or 3 jobs. And right before his senior year, his mom just got fed up because he was a tremendously talented kid that never participated in any extracurricular activity. That's a big word for a general studies major. And she says, I don't care what sport you pick, but you're going to play one sport your senior year. So he walked onto the football team at Taylor Alderdice. And back then, it was very unusual to even run for 4,000 yards in your career. So somebody approaching 2,000 yards in one season, which Curtis Martin did, he went over 2,000 yards, really caught the media by surprise. So I went to see a game, and Curtis Martin is playing in the semifinals of the City League Championship game against Oliver High School that had Ray Zellers. And Ray Zellers ended up getting a scholarship to Notre Dame. And I tell you what, it was a great game. Oliver won. I thought Ray Zellers was one of the best linebackers I ever seen. Ray Zellers went on to be a fullback that played 2 years behind Jerome Bettis at Notre Dame. And when Jerome Bettis left, Ray Zellers stepped in there and ended up getting drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, had a great career. And Curtis Martin Went on to play with the University of Pittsburgh before he got drafted by Bill Parcells and the New England Patriots, then the New York Jets, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. So I went to a City League game and seen two outstanding players, Curtis Martin and Ray Zellers, back in the day.
There you go. That's the first edition of Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. And then, because Chip has always talked about useless trivia, I'm totally against that. It isn't useless in my book. I love trivia, and I know there's a lot of people out there. So we're going to go with a little segment here. And I know with Chip what you guys are saying. It's not a little short segment. It's called Chip's Trivia Time.
And, Alan, you caught me by surprise here. I didn't have anything prepared for tonight.
We'll move on then.
Move on. Yeah. Let's move on because something might pop into my skull. Why don't we move on to some of the more local sports?
And here, he's going to waive his right to this at this time.
Yes, I am.
We'll bring him in next week. He'll be even stronger, folks.
With a golden nugget of useless information.
No, it's priceless. Okay, I know he's dying to bring up some of these other issues coming up here with sports. We got NFL, we got basketball. Chip, just pick one and we'll get rolling with it. I got a list of them.
We got a hockey season.
That was number 7.
The Pittsburgh Penguins are going to actually play hockey this year. And, and everybody is all just gushing and happy that the Penguins are back. But, and I'm happy the Penguins are back, too. I think really what the NHL and the NHL players need to do, instead of handing out pizzas to people that are standing in line to get into the arena, is that the owners and the players, they need to do something to pay back the people of the city of Pittsburgh that have suffered because of their lockout or the lack of their playing. There's the restaurants. In the lower north, in the lower Hill District, that have been, they've had to lay people off, they've had to fire people. And think about this, how many home games have they lost? And think about the revenue that the city of Pittsburgh did not get in taxes. Now, this is kind of money that, does things like pave streets, helps to pay for the infrastructure in our city. And what are they going to do to pay people back? One of the things that disturbed me about this whole thing, and they were talking to an executive from the Penguins, and they said, well, we only had 45 season ticket holders turn their tickets back in because they were upset. And they're like, you know what? We got a list of 9,500 people that are ready to take those tickets. And I really think that was really, really poor for them to say, and it really shows a lack of respect for the people.
Who said that?
Some executive for the Penguins.
Chip, one of these things, though.
Right.
Excuse me, fellas, but one of these things with this lockout, I had said before, and I'm outspoken for the union and all this other stuff, whether they want or not, I had said in the beginning, everybody loses.
Yes.
And that's what happens, whether it's a strike, lockout, or whatever. You had people out there that were just hunkered down in their position. They weren't going to waver. The players didn't blink because 50-50 was on the table as their offer. And they got something, I announced it last night, but a lot of people, we got an old school guy on the table here, so he knows what a defined benefit plan is, a pension plan, I'm sure. Wow. And that's what the players got, and they didn't have it. And like I mentioned last night, it made the union and the owners partners in this, because that's what you do with a defined benefit plan. You have to fund it. So that's part of it. And they have now you're going to have, 8 years, 10 years of peace, so they say. So you got a few things there, but my point of all this is, everybody lost. We have owners of bars, restaurants out here that have all lost money. We have an economy that's in bad shape to begin with. Look at some of the business around Consul was down 70 and 80%. And these are what you're talking about. They've laid off people, and they're not bringing them back till the business comes back. Now you're only going to have 24 games.
Well,
right? And you don't even have the preseason games where you can make some other revenue.
But here's what the thing is. In a city like Pittsburgh that has a very strong hockey fan base, okay, we're very unique here. We're never going to have to worry about putting fannies in the seats at the console because this is a hockey hotbed right here. You know, and I think after this whole thing is said and done, now there's 30 teams in the NHL, and they said that they had to go through this lockout and they had to hurt everybody so that all of the teams would have an opportunity to be able to make money, because they were saying that of the 30 teams, 14 of the teams were making money, 16 were unable to, you know. And I think because of the damage that they've done to the fan base with their lockout, I would say in the next 3 to 4 years, I bet the NHL loses 3 to 4 teams, because there are cities that they don't have the avid hockey fan base that they have here, and people aren't going to come back. And they're not going to put fannies in the seats. And they're going to have these arenas, and you know, they're going to have these salaries to pay. And I think, you know, we're going to see more fallout from this.
Those
this
are
strike
great points.
over the next few years.
They should not have expanded like they did. Think about it. It's about the money. When you can borrow money and you're a billionaire, you got these communities paying for these arenas. And who makes the money from it? The ownership there. And then who's paying for it? Like Big Mike's asking about Penn State. We're paying for these arenas. So not only did you hurt the business people, you hurt the community, because we're still paying for it with our taxes, Mike.
You know, Big Mike, you know, you're a baseball fan. I'm a baseball fan. You know, when baseball expanded to 30 teams, you know, how many AAA players now became major league players that would have never made the major leagues had they not expanded to so many teams? And look at some, you know, I mean, you see a lot of mediocre talent in the major leagues, where before you used to see nothing but the best of the best. You know, so
Thanks for segueing into baseball. There's our Pirates there. You know, we're getting into that with all the buzz about the Pirates.
yeah, and you know, the Pirates made a big trade over the Christmas holiday. They
Hold it. Who was your buddy that said we had this little call-in?
Yep, about trading Mike,
Who
Joel
was
Hanrahan.
Mike called in?
Yeah, that was
Your
my
buddy?
friend Mike Brown. Yeah,
He called in, and Chip took him to task on that.
And last
he was
year-
right during the year.
Yeah, last year during the season, it would have been a big mistake to get rid of Joel Hanrahan. Hanrahan became expendable because he's eligible for arbitration. His salary was going to at least double from what it was last year, and he is worth as much now as he's ever going to be. And and I think the Pirates got fair value for him. Whether or not the trade's successful or not, time will tell. Joel Hanrahan's going to the Boston Red Sox, and I wish him well. I was really a big Joel Hanrahan fan when he pitched there, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I hope that the young men that the Pirates picked up ultimately end up panning out. But, the one thing the Pirates had to do, and everybody here agrees, they could not stand pat over this winter after what happened last year.
Right.
And the Pirates have made some changes, and they've made some smart changes. They haven't gone out there in the free agent market and thrown hundreds of millions of dollars at players on the downside of their career, just trying to appease what people are trying to say. They're doing this in a bright way, and I'm really invigorated and fired up for the season. Heard a little bit of news that disturbed me. They had had an agreement with Francisco Liriano to sign him as one of their starting pitchers. And he's a quality left-handed pitcher. Probably he's not going to win 20 games for you, but he could be a solid starter. Now it's in question as whether or not he's going to be signed. He's a left-handed pitcher.
He doesn't have the health, maybe.
He hurt his right arm about a month ago in the Dominican Republic, and he has yet to pass the physical that he needs to pass to be signed by the Pirates. So this is on hold. We're going to keep an eye on this because, they may or may not have him, and will he be able to pitch? Fortunately, it was his non-throwing arm that he hurt. So, we can only hold out hope. But
He's the eternal Pirate optimist. I'm the Pirate fan, but folks, how do you spell, Mike will know this. There's a word that the Pirates go by, and it's not really a big one. I can spell it. Maybe you can pronounce it D-U-M-P. And that's what they're good at. And they actually perfected that because they have all us drinking the Kool-Aid, because I want them to do well. But these players that we got, as soon as you research them a little bit, we need a nice prayer from everybody, from the Pirate gods, to help us with that. So I'm hopeful there, and I'm not trying to be sacrilegious, Big Mike. But
Well, I did some, during a 2-week hiatus, I reviewed a lot of shows, I critiqued a lot of things, all myself. And I kind of felt bad that, not that you and I go back and forth on a Pirate thing and not the Pirate thing or any other
who are
team.
you talking
To the Profiteer, my friend there. You broke my train, man. Okay, so it's
We're looking at me.
it's okay. Back on track, guys. I don't feel bad about the way I take to task the Pirates. I don't feel bad at all. As a matter of fact, now I said to myself after critiquing the show, I said, you know what? This is a sports show. We can talk about anything we want, sports or non-sports, and we can talk about, if it is sports, we can talk about any sport, any team. But, you know, I have every right to say what I want to feel, or the way I feel about the Pirates. And I'm just going to kick it off again with, I want the guys on the field to succeed, but at the same time, I'd like to see them not succeed, because the people in the front office, I'd like to see them just get out of time. Now, go ahead.
No, Big Mike, I defend your right to have your opinion and to voice it. You know, and as baseball fans, you have every right in the world to be critical of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And you know what? As a lifelong Pirate fan, I'm going to be critical of them this year, because you know what? If what's happened the last 2 years happens this year, then it's time to make changes in the management. You know, and I think that we need to hold them accountable to that. But you know, by the same token, they need support to get to where they're going to go.
Actually, I'm talking about ownership. Management is just a part of ownership, but I'm talking about ownership. And this evening, not this evening, but I had actually prepared a Pirate schedule, and I checked off every game, every series, blah blah blah, and I came up with a one-loss record for this year.
All right.
And I bagged it tonight because I did hear about the Liriano injury to his non-pitching arm, so I want to go and revisit that. But I'm going to give you my bottom line prediction. This is the year that what was Roberto Clemente's baseball uniform number?
21.
21. That's right. This is the year. This is the year of 21 for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'll let it.
I can win $1 again.
I will let it go.
So you hear that, folks? That's 21 wins a month for this year on Big Mike Piatera.
Look, hey, Mike, I was holding off my bet with Chip. The dollar come right back out. Get back here. Get back here, buddy. And I'm hoping I lose the dollar this year. Just so you know, I'm hoping that they break that 20-year losing streak.
I'm going to go to a lot of games.
What? All you can eat.
I'll be with my man Chip. And
I've already got my season ticket package. Okay? I already paid for it, buddy.
When Stephanie can't make it, he said, you can come with them. You might get shut out, though.
And I'm proud to be a season ticket holder, I got to tell you. And I'm going to enjoy this season.
Now,
And,
do you go to Penguin games as well?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And this year, I could pretty much promise you, if I'm given tickets, I'm not going to go to a Penguin game this year.
You know what, anybody out there, if you have tickets, I'll go.
I love hockey.
But, back to the Penguins,
Free hockey's even better.
People are talking about, the Penguins are the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. And I'll tell you something, the Pittsburgh Penguins last year, the way they ended the season, I think, we're all just so happy that hockey's back that we forgot how much of a miserable failure they were last year going into the playoffs. Marc-Andre Fleury is somebody that I believe needs to be taken to task because, Marc-Andre Fleury, when he has got his head into the game, he's one of the best goalies in the league. Last year, there were portions of the season that he played that he was absolutely brilliant. There were portions of the year that I don't know if he was in the same game that was being played on the ice. There was times when he gave up soft goals. Now, the goaltender isn't always responsible for, the goals that are given up, And last year, during the beginning and the middle of the season, the Penguins had the best penalty kill in the NHL. And as we get towards the end of the season, the Penguins' defense disappeared. The goaltending, was not nearly as sharp because we burned out Fleury. And, the Penguins, for the third year in a row, were a first-round exit in the playoffs. And, we go to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2008. We lose in 6 games to the Detroit Red Wings, who were, a powerhouse of a team. Right. The next year, we make it back to the finals against that very same Detroit Red Wings team, and we beat them in 7 games. Max Talbot, thanks, buddy. But what have we done since then? I think right now the Penguins, they've got a big hill to climb, and I really honestly feel that it's incumbent upon them to win the Cup this year. They've got the most talented team in the world. They've got Evgeny Malkin, arguably the best player in the world. Sidney Crosby, right there, right next to him. I know those two guys are 1 and 1A as far as talent. We've got the most offensive talent, but, Jordan Stahl's gone. Okay, we traded for a young man, and I can't even remember his name.
Sutter.
There's a lot of question marks about the Pittsburgh Penguins, and you know what? They have the potential to be one of the best teams in the league. But what kind of product are they going to put on the ice? You know, they haven't been able to practice really as a cohesive unit in the coach's system
Chip,
since
it's
September.
it's equal with everybody else. They have the same dilemma. And here's the thing, they're professionals. These aren't rookies. So part of my thing, if you guys watched our show, or you do watch our show, you'll hear some of this redundancy. Big Mike, that's a new word, our word. Revisit, redundancy. My point is 48 games. I think we play a great first half of the season. 48 games sounds about right. It's a sprint to the finish this year. We play a defensive game where we're aggressive. So that leaves your goaltender at risk. And that's part of what happens. You tire out a guy. You're running constantly up ice. And a lot of the defensive players that I watched at the end of the season didn't even come back to help.
Well,
so I think they're going to change some of that.
Well, here's what. You know, you look at the Detroit Red Wings teams, Mike Babcock's teams that played the Penguins in the finals those 2 years. Their idea of playing defense was to keep the puck in the offensive zone. And if you keep the puck in the other team's offensive zone, it's the best defense you can play. You know, you watch them play the game, and every pass they made was on the other guy's, was on the tape on the other guy's stick. You know, nobody, you know, and that's something that the Penguins lost. And I mean, you know, watch that Flyers series last year. You watched how many soft goals were given up, and you know, and every time there was a penalty kill, I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury got pelted with shot after shot after shot, and pucks are going to go in the net if you keep letting people do that. What we've got to do is we've got to play the game in the other team's half of the ice, and if we do that, we've got the talent to do it. I think we can be successful.
Well, I'm going with we're going to have to cut some of this short, but I'm going with the Penguins winning the Stanley Cup. They're 8-1 favorites out of Vegas, so Big Mike, when you make your trip, put the money on the house on the big Penguins there.
Follow the money.
Put it all on them. So we'll go cover that. We've covered most of the subjects that I want to here, except we have a Pitt basketball update that I wanted to get that in. This is history making, the last time Pitt and Georgetown play basketball.
Well, I mean, it may not be the last time they play basketball.
In the Big East.
In the Big East. And, you know, and right now, Pitt is suffering from a malady that you see across college basketball right now. And you see the same thing in college football. You know, is what they do is they reward mediocrity. You know, 6-6. You get to go to a bowl game. You know, you should. I think a 6-6 team shouldn't play in the postseason. Well, Pitt basketball team, what they used to do in the past, and this is while Jamie Dixon was coach, they would play in the preseason NIT tournaments. They would play in they'd go to Puerto Rico and play in tournaments and other places, and they would play top caliber talent, preparing themselves for the Big East schedule. So what did Pitt do this year? They played a bunch of high school teams, and they really didn't beat up on them so bad. And the three teams that they've played, they've lost their first two games in the Big East. They played Michigan, who was ranked number 4 or 5 at that time, and they lost to them. And, you know, they're playing, Georgetown tonight. And even though the Pitt team is 12-3, I say this is a must-win game. Pitt starts out the season 0-3 in the Big East, and you can forget about, any post. You're not going to make the tournament right now. After they've played 15 games in the season and they're ranked number 36. They were ranked 24th last week and they lost 2 games in a row. I watched part of the game on was it Saturday when they played Rutgers, and it was horrible. They got pushed around, they got out rebounded, and and Jamie Dixon sits there and says, I don't understand how we got out rebounded in the second half of this game. Well, I do, because the Rutgers players wanted the ball more. Right. They went after it and they got it. And they
hey Chip, you got your rant in on the basketball. I got the last segment that I wanted to do something, because a lot of us, we talk after the show. So I want to have this like in a couple sentences, Mike, that are clear and concise, that we're going to go closing remarks. And I'm going to start with Big Mike. If you can do it in a couple sentences
absolutely.
On your closing remarks to close the show out.
1994, baseball had a strike, and supposedly it took McGuire and Sosa 5 years later to bring them back. That is, people that lost their, their desire to watch baseball. Well, if the same stuff happens with hockey, I wouldn't be surprised. But on the other hand, I would be, because hockey, as Chip said earlier, it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but people were into hockey, and they're not going to lose out, and that there should be a message sent. Go.
Smoking Jim Frazier. What's your closing remarks? You got any NFL teams or anything? What's on your agenda here.
Well, Pitt basketball, CBI, Pitt football, 6-6. The Steelers are 6-6 team. The Pirates is a 6-6
500
caliber
teams
team,
or something.
500 team. But thank goodness for the Penguins. They're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Whoa. Chip the Prophet
Jim,
Hayner.
to touch on Jim's field of expertise, I agree with Jim. I'd love to see the Steelers get Manti Te'o. It's unfortunate, but I don't think James Harrison will be back this coming up season. I love the guy. He's a great man in the community, great guy for the team. He's owed too much money to keep on the team. I think the Steelers need to go. You need to go draft a safety in the second round. I think they got to get a quarterback high. And yes, Monty Ball be a great acquisition. Franchise
Make it quick
Mike
now.
Wallace,
I got to get my talking.
Franchise Mike Wallace, and goodbye, Rashard Bateman.
And goodbye, Chip Hayner. This is Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Green Bay and Denver in the Super Bowl. Green Bay wins it all. I don't care what anybody else says. Teo slipped. Steelers get him. And we appreciate you guys watching the show. Thanks to Chris, Joe, Devin, Aaron, Dave Cable, Big Mike Butera, Smoking Jim Frazier. Chip Hayner's going to do trivia time next week. I guarantee it. This is Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Thanks for watching the show. I'll have some infomercials. Hold on, I have one. Jessica Lee has Entrepreneurial Thursday, 5:30 to 8. Be there.
Once you figure out how to speak your kids' language, well, you don't really have to say much at all. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.